everyone, it's Sharonda from Pay Your Weight, and today I'm going to be reviewing Lovecraft Country, Episode 5, Strange Case. You guys, I am so happy. I thank the heavens above that I no longer have to get these questions. Is Christina William? Is William Christina? I think they're the same person. I need answers, Sharonda. You finally have your answers. I am so happy that one of my favorite episodes of the entire first half of the season is here with Strange Case, as we finally get it revealed. Okay, it's revealed. That's Christina is William. William is Christina. You guys were right along the whole time, and I'm so happy that we finally get to talk about it. So I'm going to break this episode up into 3 different parts. We're going to save Ruby, Christina, William, Hillary, all of them for last. But I do want to start with Atticus and Letty. And so we see that, we know from the last week's episode when Montrose raggedy behind when he killed Nahima. And so essentially Atticus and Letty comes into the room. They see Montrose sitting there. They're like, hey, where's Nahima? Is it Nahima or Yahima? I always say, I'm so sorry. But y'all know, don't charge it to my heart, just charge it to my mind. But we see that Tick walks in and he says, where is Yahima? Nahima, Yahima, sorry. And then essentially Montrose is like, you know, Nahima, Yahima gone. And he was like, the pages, and they're gone. And so immediately Tick knows exactly what has happened, what Montrose has done. And when I tell you he started beating the brakes, okay? Beating the brakes, beating the black off of him, whatever little phrase you would want to say, I was scared for him. Letty was shook. I was shook. Montrose was shook, but he couldn't be too shook because he was getting his behind shook. And so essentially Letty had to call other people to come in, pull him off of Montrose. And so then we see that he starts yelling at Letty like, did you take pictures of the pages? Did you take pictures? Where are the photos of the pictures of the page? I'm just like, sir, can you calm down, have a seat, take a breather, just woosah for a moment, because Letty is scared because she hasn't seen this side of Tick. And this really goes into, you know, the earlier conversations in episode 2 where Letty and Joyce were having the conversations in regards to the PTSD that Atticus could have from going to the war, seeing these kind of like bursts of rage or how quickly he can be angered. And so we see that she later goes to him as he's really taking care, addressing his wounds. And then she goes to him and she says, like, if we didn't step in, like, would you have killed Montrose? Like, would you have killed him? And so essentially he says that he didn't know violence like that until he went to the war. And so I hope that they really delve deeper into what happened to Atticus in the war, why he is the way that he is now, and really just how did the war change him, change who Atticus was as a person. Because you could tell he's kind of running from whatever acts that he committed from the war, and he's really trying to escape that and really try to redeem himself. And so, but before any of that could happen, and I felt like he was low-key like gaslighting her just a little bit, like, hey, it's because of the war why I act like this, like, don't be that way. But I was just like, you know what, you've been giving me every boy like little things, Atticus, and I don't like what I'm saying, but I still love you. I just want you to do better, okay? So then we see they get it on, okay? So he said, y'all gonna put some respect on my name, talking about 3 pump chump, all of that stuff after episode 3. I wasn't ready, but now I am ready. And guess what? They blessed us from the heavens above. They gave us the chest muscles. They gave us the back muscles, the glute muscles. I was just like, yes, like, show me more. Make this scene linger on even more. And then Letty, I was just like, oh my goodness, there's so many clothes that they had to take off. I was just like, that was too much trying to get it on as a woman back then. But I love that they play Return to Love by Black Atlas during that scene. But we see later on towards the episode when we are blessed again with a maroon wife beater. But before I get into that, we see a dream that Atticus is having as he's falling asleep while he's trying to decipher the pages in the text. And we see that it's the scene that we see in episode 2 with the ancestor. He's trying to get out of the mansion. However, he is burst into flames. And so I don't know what they are foreshadowing. I know that they do not show images without having a purpose, or that they're foreshadowing something that's going to happen in later episodes. But I'm really interested to hear your thoughts and your theories on what that was about. But we see that as he's deciphering these pages with his maroon wife beater, I was just like, baby, never did I thought that a maroon wife beater could do all of this to me, but it just had me hot and bothered. But then he leaned in. Did you see the lean in? He leaned in, okay? Gave a new term for lean in as he showed us the biceps and the triceps. I was just like, Yes, Atticus, please lean in again. Just lean in again for me, just one more time. And then he leaned in again, and I was just like, God is good, God is real. Just thank you, Misha, for these scenes with the wife beaters. But we see that essentially he ends up telling Letty, get it together. Letty, what has happened to Yahima? And then essentially, like, Letty just lost it. She said, you know what, boo-boo? I can't do this. This is evil. This is the work of the devil. I felt like I was listening to my grandma. You know what they'd be like, don't be inviting them spirits up into our house. We got to let this go. We got to cleanse ourselves. We got to seek prayer from the Lord for protection over us. She's just like, I can't do this. And so we then end up seeing that later in the episode, when I was blessed, not once, not twice, but 3 times in the episode, Gray Sweatpants, y'all. Just let me have a moment of silence for Gray Sweatpants, because it was one of the greatest inventions that were ever created for man, okay? Especially black man, okay? Atticus came in, Letty taking a bath. He got the gray sweatpants on. I said, are we about to do a round 2? What is happening? But they have a very interesting conversation amongst one another. And he tells her about the girl in Korea, Gia. And she asks, did he love her? He's like, I don't know what love is. Like, I don't think I necessarily know what that is. I know that my parents loved each other, but it was more of an endearing love. And I think it's very interesting that both Letty and Atticus, they don't have positive examples of relationships, of healthy relationships, healthy loving relationships. You know, Letty's mom jumped from man to man. You know, Montrose, obviously, as we find out in the episode, he, you know, there's no way they could have that intimate love that Atticus and Letty potentially have. And so I think it's very great how they continuously explore how, you know, how we are brought up, how, you know, with our family. Like, even though Atticus had his mom and his father, you know, it wasn't a healthy relationship. It wasn't healthy examples of what he saw, and how there's both stunted them in the relationships that they have with potential lovers, right? And so I think it's always interesting how we continuously see how the sins of the father, or these unhealthy family experiences, how they really kind of hinders them in certain areas. But he talks about, like, hey, like, I want to make this work. I want to see what this is. This could be love. And so, like, I was just like, look at you guys. Look how we came full circle. Who would have thought we would have been here at this point? But we do see towards the end of the episode that he ends up deciphering the words of the text, and he immediately goes to the phone. He calls G.I. in Korea, and basically he says, how did you know? And she says, you should have listened to me. And then, as we see in the episodes, the last 3 letters was die in the text. So we didn't get to see the whole thing, but it kind of foreshadows that, you know, G.I. knew what was going to happen to him, right? So I do want to talk about Montrose, because Montrose's story arc in this episode is very interesting, because we get to see him fully come into acceptance of his identity as a black man, his sexual identity. And we see that as he goes to visit Sammy, Sammy opens the door, he sees his face, and he is basically like, hey, did the old face get you, or did the N-words get you? And then we see he immediately walks in, and he basically just gets to it, okay? Just gets to it, you know, just gave Sammy a couple of good strokes and stuff, some angry strokes, I would have to say. It felt a little bit uncomfortable for me. We see that Sammy tries to kiss him afterwards, but he, like, shies away, and then he begins to moisturize Sammy. So Sammy got his kiss, just not the kiss he thought he was gonna get. But yes, so I do like how they had Bad Religion playing with Frank Ocean during that entire montage. But did you see the Easter egg of the Cabrini Green housing apartments, which is in Chicago? And you may know from TV shows such as Good Times, you may know from Candyman, and I thought that was a really cool Easter egg to throw into the episode. But I do like how we see that even Sammy's friends bring up the intimacy, or the lack of intimacy between the two, and how, like, has he let you kiss him yet? And they basically bring up, like, hey, like, this is not a healthy relationship either. But I do love that we get to see the ballroom scene back in the 50s. And I know with shows such as Pose, and also too with Legendary, that we have the more what it is now from the 90s to where it is today. But I love that they really do a throwback to the ballrooms back in the 50s, right? As we see these beautiful women dressed up, and their sashes and their beautiful dresses and makeup. And we see Montrose, he's kind of just like, just looking in the distance, right? He's kind of taking everything in, looking at the scenery. I love the lighting that they use for this. And really this we see him finally, kiss Sammy on the floor as he's really starting to accept who he is and really to live out his truth and to love who he wants to love. And I think it's very interesting to see this with Black characters, especially Black men, and especially in a time period such as this, where even today there's still a stigma around the LGBTQ community within the Black community, and how there's just still a lot of disrespect that comes with that. And a lot of people don't feel as though they can live to be them true selves, right? And we see the difference between how it is for white LGBTQ plus and Black LGBTQ plus. And so I really love that they really focus on that with Montrose. And I love the scene where he kind of has his arms out and he's just laid and as everyone's kind of like throwing him around or just carrying him around. And I really love that we're able to experience that in this episode. But y'all, like Sharonda, we happy for Montrose raggedy behind, and we're happy that Atticus redeemed himself from 3 Pump Chump from episode 3. But we got to talk about Ruby, okay? So the episode opens up and we see Ardell Raggedy behind. I'm like, what is Ardell Raggedy behind doing at his house after they just broke both of their backs in the last episode, getting it on the steps? I was like, y'all couldn't make it to the bed. Like, my back still hurts thinking about it, like on the steps. So we see that she wakes up. She's in a state of panic, doesn't know what is happening. She starts hitting her face, talking about like, wake up, wake up. And, as we see, she's walking onto the street into the Black neighborhood, and she starts saying, my name is Ruby Baptiste. And I was like, wow, what is going on? And so we see that she's like frantic. She's like talking to these people. Everybody looking at her crazy. I'm looking at her crazy. Like, these people like, where does this white lady come from? And how does she wander all the way down to the Black neighborhood? I just don't understand. But she ends up running into a young boy on the street. And then I'm like, in 0.5 seconds, the po-pos show up. And I'm like, dang, I wish that they would show up this quickly when my raggedy neighbors be playing their music or stomping to the heavens, above me. I wish that they had this same energy. But we later find out that it is actually William who called the police searching for her. And I think it's very interesting that they immediately grabbed the young boy. Like, what did this animal do to you? Did he touch you? Did he hurt you? Which really goes back during that time how white men thought that Black men, they see Black men as animals, as apes. We saw the guy mocking Atticus in episode 1. And essentially how they think that Black men want to rape white women, that they want to take white women and sexually assault them and inappropriately touch them. And I think it's interesting how Ruby immediately clicks that she's a white woman. It's like, no, officer, he didn't do anything. Like, she quickly diffuses the situation, right? Even though she's going through this traumatic moment, she still recognizes the privilege as a white woman. And that how she can save this young boy's life. And so we see that, she's in a car, she's acting all crazy. The police looking at her crazy. I'm looking at her crazy. We see stuff moving in her arm. We see her eye color change. I'm just like, girl, what is happening to you? So they bring her back to Raggedy William, and William like, thank you for bringing her back. And then we see he got this plastic laid out, and then he got this knife. And I said, I know they're not finna kill Ruby in episode 5. Not episode 5. We're only halfway through the season. I know y'all not about to do this. And so then we see that he ends up, I like that they played this song. They played a song called Tonight You Belong to Me by Patience and Prudence. And I thought it was a very excellent choice because at this point, Ruby belongs to William. She doesn't know what is happening to her. The police believe him, of course, because even though she's a white woman, the white man still comes before the white woman. And so, it's basically, he's just like, don't try to fight it. It's going to be painful. He's just talking all calm and stuff. And I'm just like, sir, do you not see what is happening before you? I just don't understand. And so he ends up stabbing her, which I thought was really cool because you see as she opens her mouth, you can see Ruby's eyeball like looking out. And I was just like, wow, like this was dope. I really love the body horror in this episode. I thought the effects were just so great. As we see the different metamorphoses that Ruby has throughout the course of the episode, I just thought it was so well done. But I do find it very interesting about how they're talking about, we cut to the news person talking about this Kenyan locust, talking about as kind of what they're saying is happening is kind of what's happening to Ruby. But little did they know that in 2020, in the pandemic, that there will actually be a real locust outbreak that is happening overseas because there's not enough people out to really stop it from happening. So I was just like, y'all were like prophesizing and didn't even know it. But We see that William ends up talking about butterflies. He starts talking about metamorphosis and how he wanted to study the change of bodies. He wanted to study metamorphosis in humans. And really everyone dismissed him, because if you hear this man talking about how I want to change somebody and somebody else, it'd be like, sir, what are you talking about? And so essentially he talks about how Hiram was the only one who wanted to work with him, wanted to do this study with him. And so she asks him like if she died, and he just says no. The potion wore off, and then basically she talks about how like people were scared, but they were scared for her, not scared of her, scared for her. And so she's recognizing the privilege that she had as a white woman. Everyone was worried about her. The police came checking on her. It was just like a whole new world that she had just been introduced to. And so he leaves a wad of cash in a potion before he leaves, and he basically says like, hey, you can, she's like, can I leave? He's like, you can do whatever you want. Like, it's up to you. And so we then see that she looks at the cash, and I was like, girl, you better take that cash. But then she ends up taking the potion, and she wants to experience life as a white woman. She's just having her best little day. People saying hi to her, acknowledging her presence. She goes and gets the free ice cream. Man gives her free ice cream. She read a newspaper on the bench. She's living her little best life with nothing to do in the world but be a white woman and be privileged. And I think it's very interesting that they play an excerpt from For Colored Girls Who Would Consider Suicide When the Rainbow Is Not Enough, which came out was written in 1975. And it really talks about the plight, the trials and tribulations of Black women and the issues that they're facing, right? Which is something that's still so very relevant to today. And we see that William's basically like trying to like, he giving her a bath and stuff, like finessing her and all of this. And basically she's like, sir, what do you want? He was like, I will need a favor, but this is just for you. You come and go as you please. You do what you want to do. I have nothing to do with that. And I was just like, okay, but what is his favor about to be, William? So we see that he asked her why she didn't touch the money, and she said the only currency that she needed was whiteness. And so this is continuing to delve into that privilege as a white woman, on how you're just treated differently, you're looked at differently. And I think it's interesting because Christina always talks about how like the world is against her because she's a woman, but you're still a white woman. So like life is not that bad for you, boo-boo. But we see that she says she doesn't know if it's tougher being a woman, being colored, or being a woman. Because at the end of the day, like it's tough being Black. But then it's even tougher being a Black woman. It really makes me think about, what we still talk about today, what Malcolm X said, the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. And we see that she ends up going to the store that she had been trying to get a job at. And she meets with her little creepy little boss, who I thought was giving me creep vibes. And essentially, like, she asked him for like a regular position. He was like, you know what, Hillary? We just gonna give you an assistant manager position. I said, sir, houseway, what was the experience? What did she need to do? She just needed to be white and you just threw her an assistant manager job? I was just really confused. And so he asked her, does she have an issue working with colored people and all of this? And so she has an interesting conversation with her, with Tamara. And she's asking Tamara all these questions, trying to get more information. Like, well, you must have took extra classes. You must have your high school diploma, all these things. And she's like, no, like I didn't finish school. No high school diploma, none of that, didn't do extra classes. And then she got real disrespectful talking about, she started telling her, we have all heard this speech before, how you have to be better than everyone because you're Black. You have to give 1,000% when people can just do the bare minimum. But I think it's interesting because it almost is like a crabs in a barrel mentality, because she's still like judging her, like, so you really got this job and you didn't do any of the things that you should have been doing to get it. So you can tell that she was judging her. But also too, when she called her Ashley, I was just like, Ruby. Now, that ain't something that a white person gonna tell a Black person, tell her put some lotion on because she look at ashy. But I did get a nice little cackle out of it. I was just like, you are so disrespectful. But we see that, how Tamara's like overwhelmed. Her white associates, they're making her do her work. they in the back taking a long break, trying on clothes, putting on shoes, dancing and stuff. Like, oh, how you move your hips like that, Hillary? I was just like, y'all, stop it. Then when they come up with this whole idea about how they want Tamara to take them to the South Side in order to go to a black bar and dance and stuff. And I think it's interesting because we see that they play Tutti Frutti twice, okay? They play the stolen version by Pat Boone, kind of around the white people. And then when they go to the bar, we hear the real Tutti Frutti with Little Richard. So I thought it was interesting that they kind of hinted towards that. But we see that William ends up picking her up from work. But I guess before that, I do want to mention how them little raggedy white women at the job was talking about how, of course, she's unqualified, she's colored. Like, what? And I just felt like this episode really hit home to me for the microaggressions that we deal with as people of color, as black people at work. I was just like, this stuff still happening today, and I was just so confused by it. But it was nice to have them put that in there. Pretty much only people who really deal with microaggressions at work would really pick on some of the raggedy things that were happening when Ruby was Hillary at the job. But yeah, so they want to go to this black bar. And so we see after they get off of work, William posted up in the car and stuff. I was like, okay, boo, you better pick your boo up in the car and stuff. Had a nice little package in the back. And then I was like, oh, okay, what'd you get her? And then it was a maid outfit. And I was like, sir, you really put that in the box? Did you really need to do all of that? I just felt like that was highly disrespectful and petty. But he says that she needs to meet Christina because Christina needs her to do something. This is him claiming his favor. But we see that there's like a little tension because when she sees him, he tries to kiss her. And so, you know, she has an issue like, are you wanting to kiss me because I'm a white woman? And William was like, I'll kiss who you want me to kiss. Ruby, I'll kiss Ruby. It's what is your world, boo-boo. I just live in it. Whatever you want me to do, I do for you. I was just like, you know what? I would be impressed, but I'm just like, I don't trust you, William. So we see that she ends up doing the favor for Christina. And she has to put this rock thing in the desk of the police captain, right? So as she's doing that, she hears moaning in the closet, and then the captain comes in, so she has to get in the closet, but it's a guy hanging up, bleeding out, moaning, gagged, and like she trying not to throw up. Then we look through the little door and we see like, sir, does he have on black skin on his chest as he's changing his shirt? I'm just really confused as to what was happening, what was going on. I need more answers to this, because I was highly confused. So we see that they end up going to the bar, right? Ruby feels very uncomfortable because she's in her part of town. She's in the bar that she performs at, but she's not herself. She's Hillary. And so she goes out into the back, and as she's doing her metamorphosis, she sees that her raggedy, creepy boss is basically sexually harassing Tamara, and Tamara is trying to get him off of her. And then when she hits him and runs away, he calls her an NB word. So I think it's very interesting that when Ruby goes home and she sees Christina coming upstairs, you know, they have this conversation, and we see that they have this conversation, and then Ruby like tells her like white women are always disillusioned by themselves, as Christina's talk about her trials and tribulations as a white woman. And she said that white women want to be you and black women want to be them. And so she basically tells her like, you need to take your own destiny by the hands and do what the F you want to do, Ruby, because that's the power that you have at this point. And so we see that Hillary comes in and she's put in her 2 weeks. He's trying to tell her to fire Tamara, which I think is interesting because we see so much how even back then and even now how white men fetishize black women, that they see black women's bodies as sexual objects and not as like an actual person. And that's something that we still see even in the beauty standards. We see, you know, look at the best butt and it's always a white woman, and the best lips is always a white woman. How they take black women's features, but you know, but black women are still not considered beautiful in today's standards that in society. And I think it's very interesting also too to see how women lose their jobs. They're fired, they're blocked from their blessings, their promotional blessings, their working blessings, because they refuse the advances of men, and they're punished for it, right? And so I thought it was interesting to see how he wanted her to fire him. But Hillary said, I'm finna put it on you because I need you, boo-boo. So she get him all tied up and stuff, getting him all ready, all hot and bothered. And then essentially she ends up changing. in her metamorphosis, we see her metamorphosis gets easier and easier each time throughout the course of the episode. It's less painful because Ruby has truly accepted that like she controls what is happening to her, right? And so we see that she ties him up and then she takes the shoe and they start playing bloody Bodak Yellow. And I was like, I know they're not about to do what I think they're about to do. And then they did it. And then she took the shoe and she put the shoe up his butt and then basically said, I wanted you to know that an NB did this, okay? And then she dropped the mic, but like dropped the shoe because that was the mic at that point in time. So, and then she walked away. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if there's going to be any legal ramifications. I don't even know how you tell people like, hey guys, this white lady who was my assistant manager ended up turning into a black woman and sexually assaulted me with a shoe. And like, how do you, like, does anyone believe that story? Like, do you tell someone that story? Do you just act like it doesn't happen? I don't know if there's going to be any ramifications for Ruby, but I mean, I was just like, girl, go ahead and get your revenge. And now I'm never going to look at Bodak Yellow the same ever again. But we see at the end of the episode when William comes home, Ruby starts asking questions like, what's in the basement? What is going on? It's the only locked door in the house. And then William basically turns into Christina, and then she realizes that William is Christina, Christina is William, and then mind blown. So yeah, this episode, I really enjoyed this episode. Like I said, this is like my favorite episode of the first half of the season. Just the body horror that you get, the fact that we just go into all of these different genres, right? How we talk about, you know, the plight of the black woman. We talk about sexuality, right? I just thought that there are so many great topics that are touched in this episode, and I just wasn't expecting this, you guys. I really wasn't expecting this for episode 5, but they did that. But those are pretty much my thoughts on Lovecraft Country. Episode 5, Strange Case. As always, my name is Sharonda from Pay Your Weight. If you like what you saw today, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, share this video with your friends, and make sure you hit that notification bell. And I love you guys 3000. And until I see you again, bye.